If you've ever walked out of an important meeting thinking, why can't I even express myself clearly? Or you stop making sense and start rambling the moment you are under pressure, this video is for you. Your speech is a mirror of your thinking. So scattered thinking comes out as scattered speech. And in the moments where your reputation is built, you cannot afford to be careless with your thoughts. But take heart. Articulating clearly is a learnable skill, and it comes down to a handful of habits you can develop. I'm all about being practical, so I'll give you the most impactful 3, and you can use them in your next meeting. And if you are working in a language that isn't your first, stay to the end, because I've got advice especially for you. Ready? Let's get you sharp. One of the things I've noticed after 20 years of coaching leaders and business owners from Abu Dhabi to Zurich is that articulating your thoughts clearly has less to do with communication skills and more to do with what I call cognitive discipline. And I'm sure you're going to like what I'll say next. Cognitive discipline is a skill set, and yes, you can build it. That's what this video is about. The first thing you need to do to articulate your thoughts clearly is to be disciplined enough to speak with precision. What I mean by this is simply using the right words. If you want the reputation of a heavyweight leader, your words need to hit the mark precisely and quickly. What I teach my clients is this: precision is exactness. So the first thing you need to do is to swap vague words for specific ones. This is the fastest win you will get, and you can hear it at once. Listen to this difference. The vague version sounds like this. There were some issues with the client, and we should probably follow up at some point. Now the same thing said with precision. The client missed 2 deadlines and went silent. I think we are at risk of losing this account, and I want to call them today. In the same situation, one of these people sounds like they're guessing, and the other sounds like they're in charge. On top of that, vague sounds junior. Specific sounds like someone you'd promote because they are focused on getting results. And the only thing that changed were the words. Another way to be exact is to use specific information instead of general words like some. For example, use a clear moment in time instead of saying at some point. Like this: we need to change the supplier by the end of the month. Specific is a choice, and it's available to you every single time you speak. And another thing I want you to stop doing is what I call the long and winding road. Say this out loud with me. We need to look into it closely. Now say, we need to audit it. Look into it closely is the same as audit. 4 words versus 1. Once you learn this, increasing your precision is much easier. Circle back and touch base becomes decide by Friday. Reach out and sync up becomes call. Anytime you catch yourself stacking up words, stop, because there's almost always one precise word hiding right underneath. Find that word and use it. Please also consider this. If it takes you 5 words to say what 1 word could express precisely, your listener is doing 5 words of work for no reason. And busy senior people will not do that extra work for long. So that's precision. Quick word before we move to the second skill. If this is useful to you, subscribe. I publish 1 video like this every week, and I'd love you to be the first person to know when a new one drops. Now, let's move on to the second habit, and this one is one of my favorites. In fact, I say it to my clients so often, they started saying it back to me. Some of them even tell me they've printed it and keep it on their desk as a constant reminder. It's this: talk less, say more. Sounds simple, but I know it's anything but. Now, why do people say too much? As far as I can see, they're thinking out loud. They start talking before they decided what they want to say, and they use the conversation to work it out. To put it diplomatically, that's lack of cognitive discipline. To put it bluntly, it's lazy and careless. And lazy and careless people don't get promoted. The disciplined version is much cleaner and more elegant too. So, how can you sound like this? Take a moment and do the thinking first. Consider your one main point before you open your mouth. Then say it and stop. This will give people time to process, ask you questions, or comment. That's how you have a good discussion, and that's what builds a reputation of a person who listens, who is open, and who collaborates well with others. Talking less and saying more is time-saving, and it accelerates results. Not to mention that people trust the person who sounds like they know what they are saying and who sounds confident. So that was quality over quantity, or talk less, say more. Let's move on to the third habit, and I bet you are going to love it. The third habit is keep it simple. This is the one people argue with me about because they are sure that big words make them look smart, but they don't. There's a thing I call jargon monoxide. It's the fancy language people choose to sound senior or sophisticated. And like carbon monoxide, jargon monoxide is just as deadly, only this one kills authority and respect. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Someone says, going forward, we'll leverage cross-functional synergies to drive scalable impact across key stakeholder ecosystems. And everyone nods because they don't want to look like they didn't get it, but in fact, nobody can understand such gibberish. Trying to sound smart and sophisticated is the enemy of clarity. Write that down so that you don't forget it. By the way, what that person meant was, let's work better together. 4 words. There's research on this going back 20 years by Professor Daniel Oppenheimer from Princeton University. He found that paradoxically, big fancy words don't make you look more intelligent, and plain words make people trust you more and rate you as smarter. I think it's the same mechanism that Steve Jobs was talking about when he said that it takes real work to get your thinking clean enough to make something simple. You can only say a thing simply once you genuinely understand it. So when you keep it simple, people don't just understand your point. They respect you for having done the thinking ahead, so they don't have to decode what you mean. That's the real reason plain and precise language is so powerful. Now, complicated words, especially if they are used few sizes bigger than the context requires, might make people think you're compensating for something. And usually they're right, because most jargon is a mask. It hides unclear thinking, or a hard truth nobody wants to say, or a wish to sound more senior and confident than you feel. So if you want to communicate your point effectively, you should do everything in your power to speak as clearly as possible. Here's a test I recommend. Take a sentence that you hope will impress people, put it in any AI, and prompt it to tell you if a 12-year-old could understand it. If not, ask it to bring it to that level. Whatever survives is your sentence. You keep every bit of the meaning, just lose the fancy costume. When you try to sound impressive, you usually sound less sure of yourself, not more. So let me repeat. Keep it simple and clear. Don't dress it up to sound clever. Do these 3, and when you speak, people hear a clear mind. And a clear mind is what builds your brand as a person who can be trusted with more responsibility. And one more thing. This is the part I told you to wait for if the language you work in isn't your first language. Everything I just said gets harder the moment you're working in a non-native language. A senior client said something to me not long ago that I keep thinking about. He said, "In my own language, I'm a brilliant communicator. But the second I switch to English, I feel self-conscious, I lose confidence, and I stumble." I know exactly what he is talking about. When you speak in another language, part of your head is busy hunting for words, checking your grammar, worrying about your accent. That's attention you'd normally spend working out your actual point. So the thinking, the part that makes you clear, is running on whatever is left over. Which is exactly why these three habits of precision, quality over volume, and simplicity are worth more to you than to almost anyone else. You can't think and translate at the same time and do both well. So do the thinking first. Get your point clear in your head, then say it in plain words. And you've probably carried this around for years as your weakness. You've been telling yourself, "My English isn't good enough. Others sound so much more sophisticated." Let that go. Your English is fine. The missing piece was never the language. It was getting your thoughts clear and saying what you need to say in a short, clear, and quick way. And you know what? There's a gift hidden in this. A native speaker can ramble because the words come easily to them. You can't. So you're forced to get clear. And once you do, you end up clearer than they are. By the way, I'm not telling you this from a textbook. Polish is my first language. I coach every day in English and German. So I know that exact feeling my client was talking about. And I promise you, it gets better. The more you speak, the easier it gets. Okay, let's wrap it up. We've covered 3 habits that will help you to articulate your thoughts clearly. The first one is precision. The second is quality over quantity. And the last one is simplicity. Try them in your next meeting. You will feel the difference at once. And if you want to work with me on this, there's a link below to book a strategy call to see if we are a fit and if working with me is the right accelerator for your career. For now, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.